So here's some of the course objectives, okay? I want you to understand what the purpose of a cost analysis report is, and I think most of you probably already do, but we'll catch up those that are lagging. I want you to understand what makes an effective subcontract cost analysis report and what kind of tools are available to you. I've got a couple of templates that I can make available to you that I personally use. And that's kind of, in alignment with what we're doing here today and how I'm going to be presenting. These are my personal tools and the things that I've found to be useful. I would love it if the rest of you shared what you're doing and what you do in FactFind and how you close up FactFind and how you know when you're finished. And I think I want it to be a conversational kind of back and forth presentation today. We'll go through all of these things. I'm going to show you tell you when to stop, give you some practical advice, give you some downloaded tools, and then you can see my contact information. But to start off with, my name is Patrick Mathern. I'm the president of 23 Degrees Consulting. I'm based out of Santa Barbara, California, the armpit of America. No, it's not. Santa Barbara is a gorgeous place, if any of you have been there. We provide FAR-compliant cost and price analysis reports on behalf of major primes, typically. We have lots of different sizes of clients, but we typically work with like Boeing, Northrop Grumman, large primes. We have a 100% success record with the DCMA and the DCAA and large primes. So when we write our reports, we have great success with getting those reports accepted through FactFind and through negotiations. Most recently, we had a large prime that had a $20 million, it was a 20% challenge to their entire proposal. It was 50% of their material. We had done the cost analysis reports on their material. It turned out the contracting officer was just kind of trying to stab them and turn the knife. And we were able to get within 2% of their proposed material using our cost analysis reports. So that's kind of what I think makes it okay for me to be up here speaking to you and kind of leading this conversation. We also have an online price analysis tool. It's called SpendLogic. And I'd recommend that you check it out. I've got a couple of brochures. I've got some here at the front. If you're afraid of me, I've put some at the back of the room as well, so you can check those out. I totally understand, and I don't take any offense to it whatsoever. So, all right, in the back of your minds, I want you to think about how each of you determines that enough is enough, right? How do you know when to stop FactFind? How do you know if you're in the industry and you're providing information to a government customer? How do you know when to push back and say, okay, listen, what I've given you is plenty. You shouldn't be asking for any more and kind of pushing back, because you can do that, right? And then on the other side of the table, if you're a cost analyst, right there, if you're a cost analyst, how do you know when to say, okay, I need to step back and I need to stop, right? That's what we're going to be doing. Think about in the back of your mind, like I said, what it is that you use as a measure of that, and bounce that off what I'm saying here today. So I'm partial to gummy bears. All right, I don't eat a lot of sweets, but you put a bag of gummy bears in front of me, and they're gone instantly. So sometimes as a cost analyst or somebody, if you're a contract administrator, contracting officer, when you're getting into FactFind, it can be like, for me, trying to eat just one gummy bear. I got to keep going, and I get deeper and deeper and deeper into the weeds, and before you know it, I'm running for my life from the rest of the bag of gummy bears. So what I'm going to challenge you to do is to step back at several points and say, okay, actually, this may not be in alignment with my objective. So, your objective could change slightly based on why you're doing your cost analysis. Who's your customer? Who's the recipient of this cost analysis? Is it somebody internal? Is it a prime contractor? Is it a government agency? Who are you providing this to? I've spent my entire life, I cut my teeth at Boeing. I've spent my entire life kind of learning from the industry side of things. And I've talked to a lot of contracting officers recently, and they've given me new insight into one of the things, one of the worries they have with cost analysis and why they keep going, and that's protests. So from the government side, and I see a lot of nods. I see people saying yes. So I hadn't really considered that, but one of the reasons they keep digging and digging and digging is this fear of protests. And I'm not sure if they know when enough is enough, but they're sure as heck going to cover themselves to make sure that they've got enough, right? We don't see that on the industry side. We keep digging and digging, but sometimes it's because of our internal processes or the procedures or whatever. It's not necessarily that fear of protest. So we have different motivations. How big is this procurement in the grand scheme of things? So, okay, yes, it's over the Tina threshold. I'm still using her name, even though she's long gone, right? The truthful cost or pricing data threshold of $750,000. But if this is on a $130 million proposal, how much does this one really matter? How deep do I need to go into this? And what's driving the need? Is it, again, internal procedure? Is it those statutory requirements that we're all required for? We have one client that they don't have the statutory requirements a lot of times because they are a commercial item, but they've put into their business policies that they require the same level of TINA requirements for anything, even if it's not driven by these statutory requirements. So there's some companies out there that still push this down and say, if you want to do business with us, this is how we operate because one of our customers is a government customer. All right. Start with the FAR, right? Okay, this is kind of what drives cost analysis. FAR 15.4, I've got my FAR 15.4 tattoo on my left arm. Many of you probably have it on your right arm. It doesn't matter. But if you boil this down a little bit and take out some of the words, you're going to notice a couple of things. Okay, this is an eye chart, kind of. I've got red, blue, and yellow. Okay, so what I've done is this is how I think about cost analysis, and this is how I think about fact find and how I set up both fact find and my reports. I separate it really into 3 questions. Okay, I'm going to get back to that. So cost analysis is the review and evaluation of separate cost elements in profit. Okay, that's one idea. To determine a fair and reasonable price, that's another idea. And to determine how well the proposed costs represent what the cost should be, assuming reasonable economy and efficiency, right? So I've taken those roughly and grouped them into 3 ideas, and they are, have the separate cost elements and profit been reviewed? Number 2, what is the fair and reasonable price? And number 3, how well do the proposed costs represent what the cost should be? In a nutshell, those are what I call the 3 magic questions. When any of my analysts do a cost analysis or they conduct a fact find, I make sure throughout the process that we're always following those 3 questions, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about today, how to keep those 3 questions in mind as you go through the process. And you'll also notice that I also have why behind each of those questions. So anybody that's written or read a cost analysis knows that that's kind of the most important part, why. I love it when I go to an engineer and I say, hey, I've got some hours here I need you to look at, and here's what I need from you. And I get their technical review back, and I read it, and it says, hours are approved. And it's just like, okay, but why? Yeah, why? Is there anything else? Are there any other major questions that you can think of that you use in your practice or that you would look for in a cost analysis? Okay, if you come up with something throughout the talk, just let me know. Sorry, am I standing in front of you? All right, so here's the usual process that I've seen. So this is something that I've seen with our clients, our prime contract clients, as well as some of my peers in the industry. They'll start with the FAR. Okay, we just looked at the FAR real quick and what it said. Then they have some sort of fact find documents that they put together, and they go through the fact find process, and then they deem that finished and complete, and then they go and they write their cost analysis report. So they pull all the data together, and then they start writing. And I'm going to argue, and I'm going to show you how today what we do is slightly different from this. So we start with the FAR and those 3 questions that I just talked about. And then we lay out our cost analysis report. And we say, these are the elements that we need to have in the cost analysis report. And from that, we generalize it, or we start with that skeleton and turn that into our fact find document. Okay? That's the whole key. He sees it. He knows that that's the whole point of my talk. He gets the magic answer, and he left. So that is actually the smartest guy in the room. Yeah, okay, sorry. He caught me. I didn't think he was going to hear me. So I'll have to apologize to him. This is a better way to go. And the reason for that is because this tells you when to stop. When you've filled out these documents and you have all these questions answered, it means that your job is done and you can stop, right? Yes, go ahead.
I'm assuming, though, when you do that, well, I shouldn't assume, are you making a presumption a determination that the cost is fair and reasonable, or do you leave that determination, you don't make any kind of a predetermination?
Right. So, okay, so if I understand correctly, the question was, when you're laying these documents out, are you making a determination up front or an assumption that the price is fair and reasonable and you're trying to justify that, or are you leaving that open to see what falls out the bottom? Okay, got it. So personally, the way that we do it is we, how do you say it? We assume innocence until proven otherwise, but it's not that we are justifying, we're not trying to justify at any point in the game. What we do is we, as much as possible, try to look at it very blindly and say, okay, I understand what price has been proposed. Do I understand why it's been proposed? And can I substantiate that and make a case for that being reasonable or not? So as far as, we don't make any assumption that it's fair and reasonable, but we don't make any assumption that it's not fair and reasonable, right? We try to just very blindly do it. Findings, right. It's substantiating and telling the story, right?
Certainly, the objective you're trying to reach, we've all seen, can sometimes influence the facts you find and how you determine those facts.
Agreed. I agree. And that's one of the problems that I see in cost analysis, and actually more in price analysis. People that we work with, I have it at least once a month or more. Somebody comes to me and says, well, you did this price analysis for us, but it's actually different than what they've proposed. It's much lower. So and then they say the magic words, how do I justify what they've proposed? And I just look at them and okay, let's step back and talk about, what, and from this point forward, I'm just going to send them this video in YouTube in an email and just say, just watch this for a few minutes. So it's not really a justification. I know that's not the point that you were making, but I want to make sure that everybody understands that cost and price analysis is not justification of a subcontractor's price. It's providing the facts and the justification, telling the story for what a fair and reasonable price is or should be. Did that answer your short question in a long-winded manner? Okay, perfect. All right, so the first thing, like I talked about, set up your report skeleton, right? This is how we do it. This is the template that you can download, and I'll give you the website address at the end of the presentation. But in general, you're going to have sections of your cost analysis report, right? You're going to have a general section that talks about audit rights and your CAS and your, the background of the procurement and all this stuff. And then you're going to get down into each of the cost elements. Labor hours, right? You've got engineering, manufacturing, whatever it might be. And you'll notice, I think you can see it, the colors for engineering, right? Those colors go back to these questions. And actually now they look like different colors to me. So the first one is, have the separate cost elements in profit been reviewed? Second is, what is the fair and reasonable price? And then orange or yellow is, how well do the proposed cost represent what the cost should be? So if you go into your cost analysis report and lay out your fact-finding documents, you should be asking that very thing. Engineering, does it require review? Do I need to look at this? That's an important thing. And we'll talk about this in a minute. If they've proposed 3 hours to turn on machines and turn off machines at the end of the day, in the grand scheme of things, this is probably not where you should be spending your time. So that's an important question to ask yourself. Do I need to be actually looking at this in detail or not? Second, what's the proposed basis of estimate, and is this basis of estimate valid and why? So you're just gathering information, right? If you don't understand the basis of estimate, then you don't have a basis for doing an analysis. If at the end of the day, if they don't have a basis of estimate, they've got an unsubstantiated cost, and that's a pretty easy one. Those are easy to analyze, right? Yeah. Gone. Yeah, exactly. Third, in blue, what should the cost be? Are there actuals or other data to support this? So for every cost element, whether it's labor, it's material, it's other direct costs, you got travel, whatever it is, always structure it in this. So now, once you've got this, right, use your fact find to fill in the blanks. So you structure it based on their proposal. You've got all the cost elements laid out. Fill it in to the best that you can. Once you have this, all right, so I like green and red for obvious reasons. Green means I'm good. Red means I got some problems, right? So in this particular instance, under labor hours 2.1.2, I use WBSs. You know, I don't know. It's a sick thing that I have, but I use WBSs, and then it's easy to, you like that? Okay, good. We share the same sickness. Then I'm able to go back and refer back to this, right? And it's a nested set of questions. So is this basis of estimate valid? Why or why not? It's unknown. Factors applied that were not explained. So they had a 2x complexity factor. I don't understand why. They didn't say anything about it. Now I've got my fact find basis, my fact find question. I'm going to know exactly when that question is answered. It's very, very objective. I can tell when I finally get to the point that they have a basis of estimate and it is or is not valid, and I understand it, and I can mark that green, and I can move on. Yes?
What do you mean? Sorry for making it.
No,
What
no.
do you mean by 2.1.3? This is a follow-on, obtain actuals from prior run. What does that mean, obtain actuals from prior run?
Oh, yeah, good question. So the question in 2.1.3, it says this is a follow-on, obtain actuals from prior run. You were asking what's the purpose of that?
What's prior run?
So, and that's probably just my shorthand. What's the prior production? What are the actuals from the most recent production?
Okay.
Is what I'm saying, yeah, prior run. And how do these compare? I mean, I love actuals, right? Yes? Question is, do we get forward pricing rate agreements from our subcontractors when we're doing the rate analysis? It depends, right? So sometimes when we're brought in, we're brought in as a third party, as a, you know, when you have a DCMA audit assist, if you can't live with waiting 3 months or 4 months or however long it might be, then we act as that audit assist. So we do get all their rate and factor information. So if they have approved rates, then we'll get the letter, we'll get the rates, and we can just do a quick rack and stack and compare the two. But there are instances like, you know, if we're doing something on behalf of Boeing and we're, you know, analyzing Lockheed or Harris or something, oftentimes they'll say, we don't care who you are. You guys are great, I'm sure, but we're not giving you anything, all right? Yeah. It depends on the supplier. Our preference, obviously, is for us to get that information, but sometimes there's just no way around it. They have company policies that don't allow it. Any other questions? What are you, industry or are you government? You're government, okay. So here's some ways that we've found that we can shorten fact find. These are things that we've built. We've been in business for 7 years now, and these are things that we've built over the years that have shortened fact find for us on behalf of our clients. And I'll talk through each one of these things in more detail. So one of the things that we try to do, and this kind of goes back to eating gummy bears and finishing the bag and going and get another one, is try to see things from the sub's point of view, all right? Realize that, okay, they are going to give you a conservative estimate whenever they can. There's a range of fair and reasonable, right? There's a high level, a high value, and a low value, and your job is to figure out what a reasonable target is. See things from their point of view. They're not typically they're not trying to pull one over on you. They're trying to do the best job they can to, you know, get a good price, make their company money, make sure they don't go under, probably make a healthy profit, I would say. But they're not typically trying to really just ram it to you, you know. So avoid treasure hunting. And by treasure hunting, I mean, don't go in with this attitude that I'm going to find the mistakes. I'm looking for mistakes. I've had analysts that have worked for me that I still don't know quite how to interview for this, but they come in and the first thing they do with a supplier is they reach through the phone and they take their finger and they just point it right in their chest. And they sit there and do that through fact find. And what a better way to turn a relationship adversarial from the beginning, right? If the supplier feels that you are hunting for treasure and you're looking for mistakes and that's your job, then it's going to get really difficult. Information's going to slow down, and your fact find is going to drag on and on. Yes, sir.
I've found in fact finding, an old adage, you catch more flies with honey than you can with vinegar. When you fact find, you should be extremely nice to the supplier. Ingratiate yourself, find common ground, get them to trust you and give you the information, and then you take the information in negotiations. If they've given you something that you can challenge them with, that's when you do it. You don't challenge them up front, otherwise you have to fall from day one, and you're struggling from day one all the way through negotiation.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Yep. You catch more flies with honey than vinegar. Yeah, that's excellent. Yeah. Yeah, we find the same thing. You know, again, poke them with a stick and the bear gets mad, right? Second, stick to your outline, all right? And this goes with the point at the bottom. Consider giving them, and I'm sure that in some format or another, you've got pricing instructions that you've already presented to your supplier, and you've asked for data to be in a certain format, and you've asked for certain data. Stick to your outline, those 3 questions. Make sure that all the questions that you ask are somehow related to that. Your suppliers, so if you're, if you're on the industry side and you're asking your sub-tier suppliers are far less sophisticated in many cases than you are. If you're at a prime or a large supplier and asking a sub, they are going to really not understand what you're looking for, and it's going to feel like things are coming from all kinds of different directions. This happens at primes, when you're being asked from government customers as well. So try to stick to those 3 questions and relate your questions back to those 3 areas. Listen, I'm just trying to understand your basis of estimate, if it's applicable or not, and if I need to do this. Yes, ma'am.
Just a practical question. You normally send, like you get the sub's proposal, you then go back to them in writing or via email with your questions and follow up by phone, or how, what do you find works best?
All the
Yeah. Yeah, the question was, in a practical sense, how do we go back after we receive the proposal? How do we go back with those fact-find questions? Is it phone? Is it email? How is it? And I would say that you're right. Everything above, right? The more structured you can make it, the better. So in a perfect world, if I could every single time, I would get the proposal, I would read through it, and I would actually sit down with the supplier. And I would go through the proposal, because oftentimes there's a lot that is lost in communication that you can pick up just by sitting down and talking to them. And I'll get to you in just a minute. But I would say, and I'm going to show you the template that we use, that fact find, or the RFI form. If it is going to be, if I can't do phone, I can't do in person, and it's going to be email, what we've had the most luck with is setting out this fact find RFI form with we go through the entire proposal, and we look at what we have BOEs for and what we don't, and we do everything all at once and give that whole form to them. Now we've got a WBS layout that we can build over time, and we can ask questions that are nested in with other questions, and it becomes a very structured approach that both of us can look at and give feedback on. Does that answer your question? Great. Sir?
I'm just going to say that when going back and forth, whether it's with a sub-supplier or whatever, if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, good point. If it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Depending, it doesn't matter which side of the table you sit on. It just matters how much it hurts when you get burned by that, right? Yeah. So get everything down in writing. You're right. If you put something in this form and you bring it back up in negotiations, if it doesn't come in written form from them in an email or something, then people often have no idea what you're talking about, right? Yeah, which can be very frustrating. Did you have a question, Sil?
Yeah, how would you handle it if you were on the receiving end of this? Let's say from someone from industry, and you're being asked these questions from either DCAA or the customer.
Yeah.
And they're on the treasure hunt, and how do you structure them to kind of follow that outline?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I would say, excuse me, and anybody from, any contracting officers or anybody from the government side, please, this could be a very good discussion, and please weigh in here. But she's saying from the industry side, if you're being asked for this information from the government, from your customer, how do you make sure that it fits within this format, right? So if you're being asked for something, make sure that you understand why they're asking for it, right? This is what they're trying to get to. They need to understand your proposal basis of estimate. They need to make a determination on whether or not that's valid and then come up with their own determination. Now, oftentimes you're going to say, well, we based it on engineering judgment. And so you feel, and you say, and it was based on a 2x of, whatever. You come up with this great basis of estimate. And what you see from your government customer is they come back and they say, yeah, thank you. What are the actuals from over here? And it seems like, okay, I told you my basis of estimate. That's not my basis of estimate. But you got to think back to our old retired friend Tina, that's sitting in Hawaii drinking Mai Tais right now. And she's been taken over by truthful cost pricing data, right? So what that's saying is you have data, and I'm highly paraphrasing here, but you have data in-house that could and possibly should have impact on your pricing decisions. So you have to understand that, okay, they've answered the question, they understand your basis of estimate, but there's some statutory requirements that you have yet to fulfill. So I guess I would weigh that in your mind if you're in industry. Do they not understand my basis of estimate and what I'm trying to tell them on how I proposed, or are they getting at a statutory requirement? Either way, you really have an obligation to fulfill there. If it's something that falls outside of either of those, I would say you need to go back and you need to explain, I've given you my basis of estimate. This is all the information I have. What you're asking for is beyond the scope of normal business. It's not a statutory requirement. Help me understand what you're looking for here. And it could be that you can help nudge them. They don't like to be nudged very much. Not even like a small tap sometimes. But sometimes you can help them understand that they're kind of veering off the path. Did I see somebody else raise a hand over here? Okay. And the last point on this slide, it often does not make sense to, actually I don't know when it would ever make sense, to give your cost analysis position to your supplier. That's your negotiation objective, right? You got to negotiate below that. So you don't want to give them your cost analysis. But if you can, present your findings. So in that particular case, wouldn't it be nice if the government came back to you and said, hey, we're having this is what we understand from you. This is your basis of estimate. Our problem here is X, Y, and Z. And they tell you, here's the questions I've yet to answer and I need your help in. So I would say, because it's so nice, it would be so nice for us to get that from our government customer, we should probably be doing the same thing, for our sub-tier suppliers, right? So that concept, share it with your supplier whenever possible. Does anybody do that? I mean, it's always a nice, okay, we do. Some people do, great. So second, I mentioned this briefly earlier, focus on the cost drivers, okay? Don't spend time fact-finding something that really doesn't matter, all right? Look at the stuff that matters. Over here, I've color-coded the, what I did is I took percent of direct dollars, okay? And I color-coded these. Red means you really got to understand this. Green means, probably doesn't have much bearing, right? So material's a big deal. And it looks like other direct cost is another big deal. I don't know if this is this a pointer? Yeah, it is. So I would say that these two things are your major cost drivers, all right? But you really got to be careful. You got to look at total labor, right? So each of these individually doesn't really have a huge impact, but altogether, this is 12% of your direct costs, and probably something that really needs to be checked out a little closer. Also, I can see it. He's salivating over here. He's ready to jump at the screen. He sees this $225 rate, So I'd say zoom out, look at the major cost drivers, but don't forget to kind of look at the pieces as well. We obviously have something going on with this $225 per hour, especially when compared to everybody else, right? So my rule of thumb, at a minimum, we look at everything that is greater than or equal to 10%. That 10% is pretty squishy. I don't ever skip anything that's more than 10%, but oftentimes we'll go deeper than that. Do any of you have rules of thumb like this? Do you go to the nth degree? Is 10% about commensurate with what you do? I see some nods. Yes, sir?
We go through each element and make sure it's reasonable. Even if it's just a wild guess on their part, we still at least ask the question, why do you feel as though it would be addressed every cost element in our report?
That's a good point. Okay, so I probably made that point.
May not spend a lot of time.
Yes, exactly.
But like if they don't have any rationale, you know, it goes by the wayside. If they have some rationale, we might dig in a little bit. It might be one of those times, I always tell those I train, cost price is not 2 + 2 = 4. And the people that come out of academy can understand that, but it's 2 + 2 is common sense. It's 3 3/4 or 4 1/4.
Right. That's an excellent point. So your point, if I could paraphrase it, is you look at every cost element regardless of value and make sure that, and your point is great, it's cost analysis is not 2 + 2 = 4. There's that range, right? You got to use some judgment and some experience. And you're right. My point isn't that you ignore everything under 10%. It's how deep you go. And that's actually, I think, what you said at the end as well. Yeah, make sure that you've got a basis for everything. Because we just did one. There was a line item for $1,500 for first article. And I said, okay, well, you know, where did you get that? And who told you need first article? Well, we just kind of, you know, then everybody, they coughed and had to leave the room. And it's like, okay, well, I don't think we need that, right? Did you have a question?
Yeah, that 10% is relative.
Okay.
It's relative to the cost of the overall proposal.
True. Yeah.
All of your other line items are a total of 90%, and you've got this one little factor, like your $1,500, you may not care.
Right.
But is it relative? Is it reasonable to have that cost in your proposal?
Right.
If it's reasonable and it's a large sum of dollars, even though it's only 2%, then you're going to worry about it. If it's not, if the rest of your proposal's $2 million and you've got a little cost over here,
Right.
you may not worry about it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's all relative.
It's all relative to the size of the procurement, is what she was saying. You got a huge procurement and it's only 10%. That may mean a lot more to you because you're still talking $10, $20 million sitting in that line item. Yeah, I agree. Good comments. Thank you. All right, and watch for those sneaky aggregates, right? Adding up a subset actually makes it a much bigger deal. And then take note of your rates always. Those sometimes kind of sneak up on you. Standardize your format. All right, so as much as you can standardize your format through your report, and this goes back to setting up your report beforehand so that you then have a fact-find document and a map, a roadmap to follow. If you can standardize that format for each of your cost elements, that's going to help you understand whether or not you've ticked off each of the boxes for each of those cost elements, right? This is really, really, really a simplified version, but not far off from what we actually do. You can see the questions on the left. Those are our 3 magic questions, right? So this is how I would write my report. It'd be much more verbose, because as you can tell, I'm not very good at being concise. But it would be, here's my cost element. This is the effort that's included. So here's my description, and this is why I'm doing this. They proposed this number of hours based upon this rationale. I, the analyst, agree or disagree because blah, blah, blah. I think a better BOE is this, and the analysis position reflects X, Y, and Z, right? So if you can't fill in any of these sections, then you probably got some more work to do. Any questions? This is an example that is way too small to read, but it basically lays that out. The slides will be available to you afterwards. You can download them on the NCMA website, and you can wallpaper your house with them if you'd like. It's a cheap way to go. Use your standardized intermittent peer reviews. This is a big one that took us a long time to figure out, okay? So typically, your cost analyst or your procurement agent or whoever it is that's doing your cost analysis is kind of working in a little bit of a bubble. You've got your tech team over here, you've got your contracts team, you know, that you're working with. But as far as the actual writing of the cost analysis or price analysis, they're working solo, all right? And for many of the clients that I've worked with, actually all of them, what we've seen is that they don't have peer reviews until right before management signs it, okay? Maybe if you've got some junior analysts, they are being checked in on and helped along the way. But for the most part, you're kind of on your own and relying on your experience. Works great for some people. We've found that if you can have peer reviews throughout the process, that's going to help you, in a lot of cases, bubble up and say, okay, I'm digging a little too deep. I'm eating too many gummy bears right now. Okay, I need to put the bag away. And this is when we have had the most luck. First, prior to sending out those first RFIs, those first requests for information. So as I mentioned, and I'm going to keep saying it, laying out that cost analysis report and building your RFI worksheet so you've got all of your fact find notes in one worksheet. Before you send that to your supplier or the analyst sends it to the supplier, we do a peer review. So we get another analyst to come in, do a quick look, very quick, at the proposal, look at the RFI questions, and just make sure that all of the cost elements have been addressed in that request for information worksheet. Now you have some feedback if you're going too deep or if you've totally left something out, which means you have to go back to the supplier more. And that every time you go back to the supplier, it's going to add at least a week of turnaround to get answers back. So that's the first time that we do peer reviews. And we have a standardized format, by the way. You standardize as much as possible. Make it very objective. Yes, no peer review questions. After 2 weeks of fact find, and this depends on the procurement. If you're buying radars for F-22s or whatever, you got a year-long procurement and a year-long cost analysis cycle. Don't do this after 2 weeks. Maybe it's several months. But after 2 weeks of fact find, once you're dug into fact find pretty good, step back, have somebody else look at it, and make sure that you're on the right track. Make sure that you're not going too deep in any one area that you shouldn't be. And then this is where the peer review typically happens after writing a report draft or before you send it to your management. That's a typical peer review stage, and that's also helpful. All right, this is a really practical way to write your cost analysis and lay out your fact find documents. We've really already talked about this. It's called peeling the onion. Everybody's peeled the onion, right? You start with the big ideas up top, and then you get deeper and deeper into the details as you go down. In this particular case, I'm not an engineer. I have no idea what that is. We've got a thing with a cap on it, and we boil it down into a guy with a hammer, and this is your labor over here on the left side. And then you boil it down into your material. Then you got your rates and factors and dollars and other stuff, right? So for each of those sections, keep it broad, stick to your story, stick to your 3 questions, and always state a conclusion. So what that looks like for our cap thingy, okay, this is for hinge assemblies apparently. All right, this flows through my report. These are embedded in different sections in my report. So top level, you see proposed analysis and variance. You get deeper into the report and you see, okay, my numbers all match, right? I can always go up higher. So I see my 957, okay, that matches. That means, and if everything here adds up, then this should be an accurate representation of my costs. Digging even deeper and getting more granular, taking this 950 hours here, I can see that it's here in the labor hours section, and I can see how this is broken out. So, and this is where, at this level is where I'm building my fact find document. I'm looking at those specific cost elements where I need to do that analysis and building my report. So that's where all of the data falls out, is at that level. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, so we got some extra time here. Overall, how do you know when enough is enough, right? It all goes back to defining your objective ahead of time. And as I said that at the beginning, many of you nodded your heads. Many of you, I'm sure, are already doing this, and this is a normal part of your business. Once you define that objective, fill in the holes, identify the gaps, and as you fill those in and you see additional holes, that's where you focus your fact find questions on. Those templates that I talked about, you can go to 23degreesconsulting.com/NCMA. Those last 4 letters, I just picked those out of thin air, NCMA. That should help you understand it, though. There's, when you go there, you're going to see that there's a couple of questions. You can either answer those questions. It's a little bit of a survey, or you can click through it. Either way is good. but you'll have both an RFI template and a cost analysis template. This is more or less, we had some headers and things to the cost analysis template, but this is what we've used, and we've actually had a lot of luck with DCMA and DCAA and those large primes. So please feel free to use those. Reach out to me anytime, and here's my contact information. I'd love to hear from you.